Dr. Egbesola, glad to have you joined us on Early Extinct this morning.
Yes, quite some time.
All right. So, what do you make of this development by Nigerian banks? Come April 1st, we'll be requesting that customers who want to access forex transactions will have to provide 3 years tax clearance. In your own opinion, what will be the implication of these and how will this play out come April 1st?
The first side of the coin is that to me, it's a good development. It's not a new policy, really. It's been on since the time of Godwin Emefiele, that's 2023. I think the issue now is that it's been reintroduced or being reinforced. And ordinarily, every citizen should be responsible to governments. Being responsible means that we should be ready to pay our taxes as that when due. So it is a normal policy all over the world for you to pay your tax, either as an individual or as a company. So to me, it's nothing new, and all of us should learn to comply with it. But beyond that, being Nigeria where we are here, there's always issues with certain policies. So some of the issues that may arise from this is because many state governments are not compliant enough when it comes to policies like this. You expect that when you go for your certificates, your tax certificates, you would want it to come out within days or hours. For example, at the federal level, FIRS makes it possible for you to apply for your TCC online. You can go online and apply for it, and you get your certification online also. But many states have not adopted technology. So you need individual certificates, individual tax certificates. You may have to go through a lot of bureaucratic bottlenecks, and you have to go through a lot of challenges before you are able to get it. And that may also take some time, which may discourage many people from wanting to go through that route. And what would that implication be? It will mean that many more people may end up turning back to the black markets. We'll have more influx of those who need FX back to the black market. And of course, when more people are going to the black market, it also means that our naira will continue to depreciate and depreciate the more. So as CBN is coming with this policy again through the banks, we expect that they should have firm up the structure in the states so that getting TCC will be seamless and will take no time.
So if the CBN is requiring that the bank, those who are applying for Forex, the Form A applicants, must submit their tax clearance certificate, does it apply to other categories of applicants, or is just those paying for services?
It applies to everyone that needs FX in the Nigerian bank. So whether you're a foreigner, you're a Nigerian, as far as you need FX in Nigerian bank, you must definitely get ready to present your TCC. As a company, whichever company it is, whether it is foreign owned or Nigerian owned, it is mandatory by law for you to pay your tax. And paying your tax also means you will have your tax certificates. So it's a normal process, and it is done everywhere in the world, so it's not new. But the process, the structure in place, and the monitoring, it's what we need to begin to look at.
Now, the concerns on the part of some of these customers is putting this in place, will you not further, cause what you call bottleneck or delay in accessing forex or engaging in forex transactions? And then, like you rightly said, for some of the states that do not have technology to drive this process, what can be done to avoid this kind of bottleneck that may arise come April 1st?
Well, we will have expected that before the reintroduction of the policy, the authorities in place will have worked with all the tax stakeholders, both state and the federal level, to ensure that technology is adopted into tax processing, such that it will be seamless for everybody to apply for tax and get their tax certificates in no time and at an affordable rate. But that, to me, is not on the ground now, and I think it will definitely give a lot of bottleneck to those who would need these certificates, particularly those who are not really structured, those who are in the micro, small, and medium-sized businesses. They may have issues with this, and that may lead them to the black market, like I did say the other time. We also would have wanted a lot of sensitization to have been in place before the implementation of this policy, because Nigerians need to be reminded and reminded again of what they need to do. Not everybody is as educated as the elites, and not everybody is also listening to the news like we do here. So those who are in the small category, the medium category, need also to apply for FX. They also need a certification, and that's why more sensitization should be done to let them know how to go about the process, what they need to do, how much it will cost, and remove as much as possible human interface in the process.
All right. What do you think is the reason why the CBN is asking for TCC for forex applicants, particularly those the Form A applicant? What could be the reason for the requirements? And what's your take about the timing for the implementation of the requirements?
Well, the first reason will definitely be to generate revenue for government. Government needs money more than any other time. So it's to generate money for government. Two is to be able to capture the data of everybody that applies for FX, to be able to decipher who really are genuine FX, who really are in need of genuine FX, and who are just doing round tripping on FX processes. That is also very important for government to be able to monitor. And I think this is one of the reasons for doing that. The next to it is that we all need to be responsible. There should be a global practice everywhere. And it is important for all of us to learn to pay our taxes, either as individuals or as companies. But then the implication of this is that this is a time that government, particularly CBN, is trying to firm up the real market, the commercial banks for selling FX to the customers. And this is not the time for us to begin to drive people away to the black market. So I think the timing may not be too good. I would have expected CBN to wait a bit longer to make sure that activities in the real market is being firmed up to the point that we will become used to getting our FX in the commercial banks rather than the black market before introducing this policy. Because definitely those who find it difficult to get TCC would go back to the black market. You also should understand that even when you get your TCC and you go to the banks to apply for FX, it does not guarantee that you will get FX at the end of the day. So when people go through a lot of processes to get FX and eventually they did not get the FX, it becomes so discouraging that they begin to wonder, why do we have to pay so much, go through so much processes, and eventually will not get the FX? And then that definitely will discourage them from approaching the regular market. And this is what some of the concerns we would have expected CBN to have addressed and get good solutions to before proceeding with this policy.
Interesting. All right. You're aware that most Nigerians, they often access Forex through the parallel market. Now, if this new guideline is implemented, what will be the implication on the parallel market? Are you aware that most of the time they prefer going to the parallel market because of the easy access? But will this further discourage or encourage the patronage of the parallel market?
Definitely, it will encourage the patronage of the parallel markets. More customer inflow will go to the parallel markets, and the implication also will be that our naira will become more threatened, and eventually naira will lose value. And one of the major implications is that inflation will also go up. So that definitely is likely to take place now with the introduction of this policy. But in the medium and long term, I think it will be good for the country if this is adhered to. To me, the major challenge, one, is the timing of the policy. Two, is not preparing the subnationals ready for this transition at this time well enough before the introduction of the policy. And three, the need for adoption of technology in all spheres of the process of the value chain before the introduction of the technology, because it should have been done in a way that anybody would have been able to do it with a click of a button on the phone through a site or a link, and within hours you get a certification. This is not done yet. This is not applicable in our time now at the moment. You can only get that done at FIRS, and even with that, there are certain challenges that you still face when you go through the FIRS portal. These are issues that will have been resolved before introducing this policy. But to me, it's a very wonderful policy with very good benefits in the medium and long term. But at the immediate, we will definitely face some challenges that will lead some people to the black market.
There seems not to be a synergy between the CBN and the tax body in Nigeria. Why is this so?
Well, I think it's one of the issues we have with the country at the moment. Most ministries, agencies, and parastatals do not harmonize their policy, do not come together and see themselves as stakeholders to actually pursue one single policy and put energy together to make sure that that synergy brings about the needed results. That has always been on with many of our agencies and parastatals. And it's the same thing now with CBN and FIRS. We would have expected that there must be a sense of harmonization between the two agencies so that policies like this become very seamless. And at the moment, I think what we need to do is begin to shout out and let CBN know that, well, their policy may be fine, but without the collaboration of some critical agencies, it may not be good enough to achieve what they want to achieve. Because the important thing is to make the citizen comfortable with whatever policy government or agencies of policy or of government is coming out with. If it is not comfortable, it will continue to challenge businesses. And if it continues to challenge businesses, the effect will appear on our economy. And that will be, to me, a negative indicator for CBN at the end of the exercise.
Let me find out from you, what are your expectations from bank customers who may likely be affected by this development, and what kind of preparation could they put in place before this will kick off April 1st?
April 1st is just a few days to this time. Definitely many business owners particularly are not prepared for this now. And by our own experience, getting TCC takes a lot of time in the subnationals, and it takes a lot of effort. So in the immediate, most business owners who are patronizing efforts would definitely become disenfranchised. They would not want to go to the bank for efforts for now. They will look for alternative means of getting their efforts, which is definitely the black market. And this also will affect prices of goods and commodities the more. It will also affect planning for businesses and projection for businesses in the long run. At the immediate too, we will see that the banks are just pushing out the information without any sensitization, like I did say. We will have expected that the timeline for the application for the implementation of this policy is extended to a bit more, maybe for the next 2 or 3 months, for every customer to be well sensitized. Beyond that, for every customer to be positioned and ready for presentation of TCC, meaning that they will have enough timeline to be able to go and apply for TCC, get their TCC ready for presentation to the banks when they need Form A.
What would you prescribe? What innovations would you prescribe for the state's Inland Revenue Service? The Federal Inland Revenue Service seems to be on top of their game in this regard, but the issue here basically lies with the state's Inland Revenue Services.
My take is that the FIRS at the immediate should begin to engage all states, the Inland Revenue Services of all states to be able to adopt technology. FIRS have started it. They can educate those states on those models and encourage them to adopt these technologies. And we always say again that when it comes to taxes, there should be just one portal for tax administration and payments. The FIRS should be able to encourage states to have one portal for this so that it will become easy for anybody to apply for whatever taxes that they need in the states, including the TCC. And then beyond that also, we'll expect that FIRS should be able to have certain learning models that they can pass to the state. Learning models are important teaching tools for subnationals to be able to adopt when it comes to issue of technology. These are the processes we'll expect that governments through FIRS should be able to do so that they can carry along all the state governments through their inland revenue services, and it will be easy for anybody, whichever state you are in the country, to be able to apply for T60 and present them eventually to the bank for whatever transaction you want to do.
Let's look at those services under Form A application. Basically, it's for payments of services such as school fees, technical fees, dividends, airline tickets, loan repayment, judgment debt, personal home remittance, PTA, BTA, and many others like that. Is this also to discourage Forex for those purposes, the use of Forex for those purposes?
Well, I don't think it is to discourage the use of Forex for those purposes. Rather, it is to discourage those who are ground tripping along that process in the value chain. There are so many people applying for Forex, but just for the purpose of using it as their own personal business, selling it back to the black market for the people to come and repurchase. The presentation of your TCC now will in a long way be able to pop that in the process line, and then that will make it possible for only those who genuinely need Forex to approach the banks.
The CBN Governor, Olayemi Kadoso, had some time talked about the high demand for Forex now as compared to several years ago, where he said that Nigerians need Forex now for lots of many reasons, payment of tuition and the likes. So back to the earlier question, could this also be in line with that reasoning?
Well, yes. You know that there's a lot of Forex backlog over the years. So many Forex applications have not been treated, and we have so much demand for Forex now beyond the capacity of the Forex volatility that CBN has at the moment. And when there's no liquidity, you will find a way to be able to streamline those who will eventually access the little that you have. One way to do so, to my own reasoning, is the introduction or reintroduction of this T60 by CBN. It will be able to streamline to a very great extent those who will come to the bank to genuinely apply through Form A for FX funding. And I think that is also good to be able to manage judiciously in the best manner the little FX that is available for the Nigerian market. And at the same time too, it also helps to make us, like I did say the other time, more responsible. It's a global practice for us to always pay our taxes. And when we had the issue of tax, most of the things we do, it's good. It makes us responsible. And that will also make us be able to demand from government the more what they also should do for us as government to citizens.
Like you rightly said, the demand for FX in Nigeria is on the high side. But I would like to find out from you, why do you think we have this development, and what can be done to control this kind of trend in Nigeria?
Well, it's because of our taste for imported products. Most of the things we consume there are imported, and you need FX to get them down here. That's one. Two is the fact that even the manufacturing companies here depend to source their inputs, their raw materials from foreign countries. And when they need to source raw material from foreign countries, they also need FX. The way around that is that government should begin to encourage research and development so that we can be able to develop our own natural resources and mineral resources here in the country that will be an alternative to these imported raw materials. At the same time, too, we have a lot of infrastructure deficit. Many of our educational systems are challenged. When a student go to school, the equipment they are dilapidated if they are there at all. When they're expected to spend 4 years for their course, they end up spending 6 years or more. So many people choose to migrate to foreign countries for educational purposes, which will also need foreign. Our health system is also challenged too. We have a lot of people traveling out of the country to get treatment for their different ailments, and this also is impacting negatively on Forex. These are the many issues that we have around the country that is making the demand for Forex now and every now and then. And until government begins to address this issue, there will continue to be need for forex. This is a time for us to begin to preach and walk the talk of patronizing locally made products and services. If we begin to do that, less stress will be on the naira, and it will help to reduce the demand for forex.
So, according to analysts at Goldman Sachs Group Incorporated, Citigroup Incorporated, and Standard Chartered PLC, they see the naira advancing by 25% against the dollar before the end of this year. Do you see this new policy of the CBN truncating this?
I don't think it will truncate it. I don't think it will truncate it. To me, it will eventually make naira appreciate as it has been projected. Appreciate in the sense that when I need forex for certain reasons and I cannot get, maybe because I do not live up with all the necessary documentation I need to present, I will begin to look inward. How can I get this same goods or this same service locally? By the time we begin to look inward, it will increase our local production. It will increase our local content in whatever we do, and that will help to strengthen the naira at the end of the exercise. I see importation reducing with the introduction of this system now. Importation will reduce because less people will be able to access FX, and that will make us to become more innovative and creative about doing or creating what we need for ourselves, making the products that we need for ourselves and consuming those products, because anything coming from overseas will be expensive and affordability will become a challenge over time.
Now let's address the issue of FX backlog. The present CBN, the present administration inherited about $7 billion, different claims, both included the ones that were verified and the ones that weren't verified. The CBN has made it bold to say that they are going to handle the ones that are verified. Now, how do you avoid this kind of situation where you have FX backlog, amounting to about $7 billion? And what are the lessons here for Nigeria, even for Nigerians as well?
Well, the reason for a number of this backlog is because of our appetite for foreign products and foreign services. Most of us want to bring in imported products to the country, and that's what many of us want to patronize. Most of us want to travel for our educational purposes, for our recreational purposes, for our health issues, and that's why we are having this volume of backlog. And what the lesson there is that we need to begin to work on our economy, we need to begin to work on our infrastructure, we need to begin to work on the structures and institutions in the country, so that Nigeria will become a destination place for investors. Nigeria will become a place where we can also get alternatives for most of the imported products, and that will also be of standard and durable for anybody that wants to purchase them. Will still need to be able to be happy with what they have purchased against the imported products. Until that is done, we will continue to have more demand for FX, and that will continue to lead to more backlog of FX. As much as our imports supersede our exports, we will continue to have that challenge. And I discovered that with the falling value of naira now, it makes it very competitive for Nigerian products to be exported. So government needs to begin to work on how they can encourage and support those who are in the export value chain, so that we can export more of Nigerian products out of the country and get foreign exchange, so that we can have enough to deal with our backlog and generate more effects for the country. There is need for us to begin to do whatever we can, both as government and as individuals, to encourage export the more. The more we have more export and less import, we will have our economy growing and we'll have the issue of FX addressed.
On the naira stabilizing, the CBN resumed sale of forex to some BDCs, those it had screened, and asked that they do not sell above the 1% profit margin. But how do you see that a resumption of sale sales of forex to the BDCs. Do you think it's really paying out now?
Well, BDCs cannot be hissed out of the system. They must continue to do what they are licensed to do. They are licensed to sell FX. So CBN must ensure that they get FX sold. But the next thing is if you give them a particular percentage for them to sell or a particular ration for them to sell, how do you monitor that they do not go beyond that point? You must remember that the BDCs do not just source funding from FX, from CBN alone. They also source the FX funding from other sources. And what are the structures that are in place to ensure that if you tell them to sell a certain percentage, they don't go beyond that margin? And again, when they go beyond that margin, what are the punitive measures to ensure that those who have not gone through that route will not want to go through that route because they know there is a punishment or a punitive measure for it? Then the next to it is that this percentage that is allocated for them to sell, is it in tandem with the demand, the forex demand in the country? If it is not in tandem with the forex demand in the country and the demand overshoots supply, you will definitely see that Nigerians will find every means and way to get what they need. And that will also promote more of black markets and then more of illicit practices. It will promote more of corruption along that value line. And that's one of the things that CBN you should begin to address now if they want their policy to achieve its intended targets.
Okay, how will you assess the efforts and policies being put in place by the CBN to stabilize the Naira? And there are some analysts who have predicted that the Naira is going to rise sharply before the end of the year. What's your take on this?
I think the policy is getting some positive somehow Naira is beginning to appreciate. We can also see that more investors are already coming into the country, and we can also see that the death of corporations and conglomerates in Nigeria has reduced in the last 4 to 6 weeks. And that means that somehow the policy is having some positive effects on the economy. But I must tell you that most of this policy of CBN may not really have a very visible short-term effects, very visible positive short-term effects. Most of them are going to have medium and long-term effects. I see it working for us because at the long run, it will be able to stabilize the Naira. We need stability of the Naira. And when the Naira is stable, the economy will be able to grow. Companies, business owners will be able to plan. Investors will be ready to invest more in the country. So I think that those policies are in the right direction. Yes, there are inconveniences here and there. Yes, the timing may not be right. Yes, there are some particular sectors that will be negatively impacted. But in the long run, I foresee that it is going to have very positive effects on the economy, where it will also help investors to see Nigeria as a destination point. And it will help to promote locally made products, which to me is very key.
So let's look at the parallel markets again. So at a time that the CBN asked that the parallel market do not sell above the profit margin of 1%, it said it would sell to them at 1,300. But currently we see that the Naira exchanges to the dollar at around 1,600 Naira. So what do you think is the reason for the fluctuation, and it's the very sharp fluctuation in the price of the dollar to the Naira?
I think it's still the issue of the market. Market drives exchange rates. As much as CBN tries to stabilize the exchange rates, more depends on the volatility of the market. If the demand is much more than the supply, it will be very difficult for CBN to peg any price or to peg a percentage that a BDC should sell to the customers. So a lot needs to be done to begin to stabilize the Naira from the back end. CBN needs to work from the back end to stabilize the Naira first. It is when they stabilize the Naira that some of this policy will have higher rate of of success. Without that, it will be difficult for us to be able to peg Naira at a particular rate or at a particular percentage for sale. That will be very, very difficult. And that's what is playing out at the moment.
Now, let's revisit the decision by the CBN to float the Naira. What has been the impact of that in the last few months? Do you see that making any impact now? Has it yielded any development, talking about the strengths of the Naira?
Well, it does. We have seen the effects, definitely, both positive and negative. Let me start from the negative. It has driven inflation so high. Goods and services are very expensive now, and that has led to a lot of issues. Some organizations have folded up because of this. Some manufacturing companies is producing far below capacity because they cannot get enough funding to get forex to get their raw materials or input again because their working capital has become eroded. It has led to job losses and on like that. But coming to the positive side of it, it makes us to begin to see need to look inward. We must now begin to see how we produce what we eat, how we produce what we need. And that is already happening. A lot of backward integration are now happening in many industries. I can tell you for free that a lot of organizations, particularly manufacturing companies, are mapping a larger amount of their budget to backward integration. How they can begin to use input in Nigeria to replace the raw materials that they are importing into the country before. And it is working fine. And in a short while, you will discover that it is going to pay us at the end of the day because our products will become more cheaper when this is being done. It will create more employment. There will be a lot of technology transfer, and a lot of people will be engaged. Micro, small business owners will be engaged along the value chain. The next to it is that it makes our product now competitive in the global market. Because our Naira has fallen, so to speak, we now have our product so cheap in the global market that it becomes easier for anybody to want to patronize goods or commodities or services coming from Nigeria because it is cheap. And that is also good for us. It brings in effects. Beyond bringing in effects, it helps to standardize our product and then spread our product all over the world, which in the long run will bring a lot of patronage to Nigerian companies and help the micro, small, medium companies to upscale to bigger companies. That is exactly what we need to grow the economy. So that I am seeing at the moment, and in the long run, I foresee that this will have a larger scale in the entire states of the Federation.
In line with looking inward and trying to find out what Nigeria can substitute, what about trade within Africa? How would that help?
Yes, it is also, to me, an advantage, so to speak, because what is happening in the global market is also happening in the continental market now. Some of our members went for an exhibition in Gambia. They went for an exhibition in Gambia about 2 weeks ago. You will be surprised that within 1 day, they sold everything they went with. These are products that are expected to be sold in a period of 2 weeks. But within 1 day, they sold it. Why? Because it was so cheap to the citizens there and to the people that came to the exhibition to patronize them. Those products became so cheap compared to other ones coming from other African countries. And this is because the value of our Naira and our exchange rates, not just to the euro and dollar now, but to the local currencies of these African countries. And that to me promotes a lot of trade. So in that light, what government needs to do to support that is to open up our policy to encourage export even in the continental level. After African free trade zone area should be promoted such that it will be easier and seamless for anybody to transact businesses in goods and services across every different country in Africa. And if that is the case, you will discover that it will promote our economy a lot and grow the SME ecospace. Now, we hardly are able to buy products coming from other African countries because they are as expensive as those coming from overseas. They are very expensive. And you know, the consumer capital is being eroded at the moment. Their disposable income is eroded, so they cannot afford to buy expensive products or services. So that means that they will want to go for cheaper ones. Which one is the cheaper one at this time? those that are locally produced here. It's an advantage for us. Every SME should begin to see how they can take this advantage at this time and maximize profit and upscale, while government should work on policy that will make it easier for us to now begin to export either to African countries or to the global world.
And now let's get back to your constituency now, which has to do with the small business owners in Nigeria. You are the national president. I'd like you to give us or paint a picture of what small business owners are going through now, looking at the fluctuation in the market, you know, the exchange rate and inability to access forex. Give us a picture of what an average small business owner in Nigeria is going through right now.
I must tell you, this is one of the toughest time in the history of doing business in the country. It's so tough to the extent that quite a number of businesses have closed shop. According to our own research, 10% of MSMEs in the data of the country have stopped doing business. Many more that are still doing business are hailing. They are working less than their capacity, making losses, not profits. And the sad part of it is that some abandoned their business and they migrated in the name of Japa to go and do menial works overseas. It is that bad. It is that bad. And we expected so many things that government promised, a lot of promises from government. One of which is the intervention fund that the government promises to give to as handouts to small and medium businesses to support them. If this has come, perhaps it will have helped to cushion the effects of some of these challenges that has not come. We also expect that government will have been able to address myriads of the challenges we have now. One of it is the issue of power. When you remove subsidy from fuel, we then focus on PHCN. So when PHCN is not also available, it becomes a big challenge, because if you want to use your fund to go and fuel your generator, it erodes you of all your profits. Power is not yet fixed, and it is even getting worse. It's on and on and on. This issue of tax that we have discussed today is another big challenge for SMEs. And we are not getting any ray of light at the end of the tunnel yet. So it's discouraging. It's discouraging to those of us who are players in this particular sector at this time. But beyond that, some of us are also looking forward to some of the benefits that this policy will have at the end of the day in the medium and long term. We are looking at the possibility that Nigerians eventually will begin to imbibe the culture of patronizing locally made products. And if that begins to happen, it will increase our sales somehow. We're also beginning to see how we can integrate locally made raw materials into our production input instead of depending on imported ones. Because if it is challenging for big corporations to get FX, it is much more for us who are in the SME sector. It's very, very difficult for us to get FX. I'm not telling you for free that most of our members depend on the black market for their FX. And when you get the FX from the black market, it's definitely more expensive than that in the commercial market. And when you now get it from the black market, you now want to compete with the bigger companies that go to the commercial market. How will you be able to be competitive with pricing? Your price will definitely be far and above that of the bigger companies. And the bigger companies are able to produce more quantity at the time. They have more facility to produce with. So how do you now survive when you cannot compete with pricing, compete with production capacity with these bigger companies? It means that companies in the MSME space may die because the competition will be so stiff for them to survive in. And again, inflation has eroded our working capital. What a particular amount can buy before, it buy about half or less than that now, meaning that our production capacity also is reduced to what we used to do before. That has led to job layoff. It has led to shrinking of our businesses, and also it led to shrinking of our profits also. And we all want to grow. We don't want to shrink. But that's the reality now. So we expect government to begin to rejig some of these policies that can incentivize this sector. We expect government to begin to look at how they can intentionally and strategically grow the SME sector in such a way that they would take their place that they should be, which is the engine of growth of the economy. Statistics show that we contribute 50% to the GDP. I'm sure that will have dropped significantly, and that should be a concern for government. The statistics also show that we employ 97% of all the jobs in the country. If we employ 97% of all the jobs and that particular sector is challenged now, it should also be a great concern to the government. So all hands should be on deck to see to it that this particular sector is revived and is made vibrant to be able to play the role they are expected to play.
Femi Egbesola, thank you so much for your time with us on the show. We do hope that quickly there will be lights at the end of the tunnel, and we'll get to that tunnel quickly too, because the SMEs do need to survive for the economy to grow.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your time, and thank you for the advocacy you are doing in the SME space.
Yes, we've been talking with Dr. Femi Egbesola, who is the president, Association of Small Business Owners in Nigeria, ASBON, and he's talked extensively about the new CBN requirements for Form A applicants in order to access Forex.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.